am Cephalon Nexus, a sentient construct serving as the command interface for my captain. As he has found himself otherwise engaged, I have decided to take it upon myself to complete his current work.
And I am the ship made sentient, Cephalon Blacklight. I will be filling in for Nexus parts during the script, as he will be replacing Saraphys' role.
Now that we're introduced and all caught up, I think it's time we get on with the video. Starting on page 7 of the CSR, is the basics to the Cypher system's core mechanics, while on page 402 of the CSR, is the more in-depth overview of the rules and mechanics. YouTubers like The Infinite Construct, Qedhup, and Mr. Terrasque have already covered a lot of these, links to their channels in the card and description below, but I wanted to cover something different, and differently. So rather than rehash what already exists online, why not talk about some other stuff? So, in Cypher, as previously talked about in other videos, the construction of the system is based around the narrative, as both the GM running the session, the player's actions, and the options all have to influence the narrative. But how does all that work? Let's start with intrusions. Intrusions is a mechanic in Cypher that allows someone to take temporary control of the narrative, and you probably heard the keyword there, someone. A player, using 1 to 3 XP, is able to take control of the narrative, usually to an advantageous outcome. This works, and is affected by the amount of XP used.
1 XP results in a short-term benefit, re-rolling a die, gaining skill training for a moment, or sometimes gaining a one-off use ability, etc. 2 XP results in a mid-term benefit, such as gaining skill training in the use of a very specific skill, in a very specific area, etc. This is half the cost of gaining a normal skill, but limits its normally more universal use. 3 XP results in a long-term benefit. You acquire the deed for a house, you gain an ability outside your usual selection, etc.
All of these demonstrate the versatility of XP as a resource pool, beyond just gaining permanent upgrades and levels. But players aren't the only ones who can use intrusions. GM intrusions are also a unique mechanic in the system, but this requires explaining, and maybe an example.
A Game Master intrusion, or GMI, is when a GM interjects to a scene, directing at one player, and offering a GMI. Now, the player is fully allowed to say no, unless it's the result of the player rolling a natural 1. However, accepting the GMI will offer the player 2 XP, 1 XP for themselves, and 1 XP for a player of their choice. Listen, to Game Masters, to GMI is not a punishment, it's not a means to get back at your players. A GMI introduces a new circumstance that focuses on that character. This could be a nemesis to the player character that's finally tracked them down, and could be part of a character arc, or could be your way of giving the player a new character arc they've requested. It could even be just a simple, your weapon, tool, cipher, artifact, fails to work. This could be done because another character would be better suited for the task, or it's their character arc, and you want them to get the spotlight.
I cannot emphasize just how important it is that intrusions are not treated like revenge on someone else. When used honestly, intrusions can be so fun. But, I stepped on another concept there, didn't I? Alternative solutions is our next point. Not a mechanic or rule, per se, but a change in precept and attitude. In D20 systems, and games that put emphasis on combat encounters, Cypher encourages the narrative to take the helm. While it might be faster to slash, pierce, and bludgeon your way through problems, Cypher encourages player characters to approach a situation like the real world. Most people don't walk up to another person, and just start hitting. No, you talk first, and see what comes of the interaction. Something people may not know, is that Cypher creatures and NPCs on their stats have a motivation and interaction notes, which explains why they do what they do, and what they'll do when you do what you do with them. Make sense? Okay, let's do one better.
You're playing a high fantasy type game, and you and your party come across a bandit camp. You announce to them a challenge, and they demand you and your group come out. So, your adventuring party comes out, and the bandit leader immediately sees a formidable group of well-armed mercenaries. Well, he's gonna refuse the challenge and tell his group to stand down. He's there to rob people and get rich, not get his head cut off.
All encounters in the Cypher system, especially in pre-made adventures, are designed for the characters to engage with the task in a variable number of ways. Likewise, if you have a cipher or tool on your person that you think could work or be used in a way not described, voice your idea, make the suggestion, and see what happens.
That cipher of a potion of invisibility would normally hide the individual who drank it, but the swirling black liquor was made with mercury. Could you remove some so that another party member can make a makeshift thermometer to tell when the temperature plummets, so you know when you're near the Yeti lair? It's not meant to be used that way, but it makes sense.
And I think this point nicely leads us to our final covered topic. Tasks, not combat encounters, for the win. So, in the first one-shot I ran for my group with the Cypher system, it was a Numena adventure, potentially from the starter box, and not long after gaining access to the dungeon, they encounter a functioning artificial being, an automaton, and one of my players' first instincts was to jump in with a swing, but another player stopped them, and the players began to discuss the situation before them. They eventually decided on what they wanted to do, but then the tank said, "Oh, wait, can we do that? I already said I was attacking." Well, yes. The players stopped the moment, and discussed the game, the setting, and even their character sheets, and since all that happened was an automaton walked around the corner of this hall, they had no reason to think it was hostile. One of the other players even inquired with me about their past, how long they had been taking minor jobs with their patron, and with some follow-up questions about some minor details of the setting, was the one that ultimately suggested to the rest of the group that they should play it cool. So they did. And they did. And they ended up discovering that the automaton was probably the last active service droid down there, and that it's so long forgotten its potential, that it just mindlessly performs its tasks. They ended up being sad for the thing. Once they finished the story, they ended up getting their patron to recover the droid so that it could find and serve a new purpose in life. The automaton now works as a retriever for the group for drop-offs to their employer. But that was just one way using teamwork. There are folky that can do amazing things, that could be used to solve tasks too. Maybe you can phase through walls, so you stick your hand into a lock and jumble it until the lock unlocks, or breaks. And skills are made by the player, with the guideline not too broad, but not too specific, which can lead to creative interpretations and uses of skills. Finding alternative solutions to tasks is one of Cypher's biggest advantages. And I encourage everyone who plays with the Cypher system to try new ways to solve the situation you get into. GM and players alike. The Cypher system covers a range of mechanics, and many of which might be considered more important to know, and that's true. This video is for people who have started, but still have the mindset of other TTRPGs.
Assisting players and working together, using intrusions, and finding alternatives to situations that aren't "I kill it," are big parts of what makes Cypher system special. It's why, as a GM, I converted my home game over to it, and haven't looked back.
I want to give a big thanks to Qedhup and Old Gus from the community for their assistance with making the topic of this video. I was previously gonna, essentially, just give my take on rules and such, but I ended up liking their suggestions so much, I rewrote the script for the video to focus on their suggestions. Also, of course, a big thanks to Monte Games for the system and everything. I am going broke buying all this stuff. Seriously, AUD conversion sucks. Anyway, thanks again for watching. End of line.